All right, let's dive into the world of Ibn Sina. Today we're going to explore the life of this incredible figure and the impact he had on medicine.
Especially,
Especially, neurology. We've got a ton of sources, medical texts, historical accounts, even a look at some seriously advanced surgical techniques.
it's pretty wild.
Oh, it's going to be fascinating. But first, let's get to the basics, right? What's the deal with Ibn Sina's ethnicity?
Yeah.
Why was his book, The Canon of Medicine, such a big deal? And how did his work influence European medicine centuries ago? And get this, the guy was performing peripheral nerve surgery way back then.
I know.
How advanced was he?
So what's fascinating about Ibn Sina, also known as Avicenna in the West, is that his work really transcended cultural boundaries.
Okay.
He was born in Afshana near Bukhara, which is modern-day Uzbekistan.
Yeah.
And there's some debate about his ethnicity.
Mhm.
Some sources associate him with Turkish heritage, but the scholarly consensus leans towards Persian.
So even though there's debate about his background, it sounds like his contributions to medicine had a global impact.
They did.
It makes you wonder how someone from the 10th and 11th centuries became such a pivotal figure in medical history.
Well, his most famous work, The Canon of Medicine, played a huge role in that
Okay.
this 5-volume medical encyclopedia became the foundation of medical education in Europe for over 500 years.
500 years? That's mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
What made the canon so groundbreaking that it resonated for so long?
Right.
Was it just a compilation of existing knowledge, or did he introduce new ideas?
It was far more than just a compilation.
Okay.
The canon contained detailed descriptions of anatomy and physiology, along with observations and treatments for a wide range of diseases.
Wow.
He even had insights into conditions like facial paralysis, tremors, meningitis,
Meningitis.
and various sleep disorders.
Sleep disorders. That seems incredibly advanced for his time. Did the sources go into any detail about his approach to those? I mean, how did he even conceptualize something like that back then?
His approach was very much rooted in observation and a deep understanding of the human body.
Okay.
For example, he classified different types of tremors, recognizing that they could stem from various underlying causes.
Interesting.
He also emphasized the importance of sleep for overall health, believing it played a key role in restoring the body's natural balance.
Uh-huh.
And get this, he proposed that mental illness could have physical roots.
Whoa, that's a perspective that was way ahead of its time.
It was.
Back then, mental illness was often attributed to supernatural forces,
Right.
That really shows how Ibn Sina was pushing the boundaries of medical understanding.
He really was.
But let's go back to the canon for a second. You mentioned it was translated into Latin, right?
Yes.
What kind of impact did that have?
That translation was a game changer.
Okay.
It opened the door for Ibn Sina's work to be integrated into Western medical practices.
So it wasn't just studied in the East.
Right. It became part of the curriculum at prestigious medical schools like Montpellier and Leuven,
Wow.
influencing generations of physicians across Europe.
So here's this groundbreaking medical text, making its way across cultures and shaping the way medicine is taught and practiced.
It's pretty incredible.
Did the sources mention anything about how Ibn Sina himself felt about the impact of his work? Was he aware of the legacy he was building?
While we can't know his thoughts for sure,
Yeah.
it's clear that he was a strong believer in the power of knowledge and its ability to transcend cultural boundaries.
Right.
He was dedicated to preserving and building upon the medical wisdom of those who came before him, while also forging new paths with his own observations and insights.
Okay, we've talked about his background, his famous canon, and how his work reached Europe.
Right.
But there's another piece to this puzzle that I'm dying to explore. His work on peripheral nerve surgery.
Oh, yeah.
This is where things get really interesting.
This is where we see Ibn Sina truly ahead of his time. He wasn't just describing nerves. He was classifying them and illustrating surgical techniques for treating nerve-related conditions. Some of his descriptions and illustrations bear a striking resemblance to the tools and procedures used in modern neurosurgery.
Hold on, are we talking about surgical instruments from the 11th century that look like what modern-day neurosurgeons use?
Pretty much.
That seems almost impossible.
It might seem that way, but the evidence is there.
Okay, what evidence?
There's an image from a Turkish medical journal called Syndrome, published in the year 2000.
Wait, the year 2000?
That's right, the year 2000.
So his work was still being studied and referenced in modern medical publications? That's wild.
I know, right?
What exactly did this article highlight?
The article is titled İbni Sina'nın Neurology ve Peripheral Sinir Cerrahizin Katkalardia. which translates to Ibn Sina's contributions to neurology and peripheral nerve surgery.
So they're looking back and still finding valuable insights.
Exactly. It dives into his detailed descriptions of cranial nerves, their functions and pathways, alongside those incredible illustrations of surgical instruments.
This is blowing my mind.
I know.
We're talking about someone who was performing intricate surgeries on the nervous system centuries before modern neurology even existed.
Exactly. His understanding of the nervous system was remarkably advanced for his time.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground already. His background, his groundbreaking medical encyclopedia, the fact that it shaped European medicine, and his unbelievably advanced work in peripheral nerve surgery.
It's a lot.
But there's so much more to unpack.
There is.
We haven't even touched on his views on mental health and how he linked it to physical well-being.
That's right.
It's a fascinating aspect of his work that really demonstrates his holistic approach to medicine.
It is.
I'm hooked. Let's dive into that next.
Sounds good.
We'll be back in a flash to explore more of Ibn Sina's incredible insights. But don't go anywhere. Welcome back. We're digging deeper into the legacy of Ibn Sina, this 11th century physician whose insights are still making waves in modern medicine.
I know, it's pretty amazing.
Before we took a break, we were talking about his unbelievably advanced work on peripheral nerve surgery.
Right.
I mean, who knew that someone from that time period was doing such intricate work on the nervous system?
It really is remarkable. And his understanding of the nervous system went far beyond just surgical techniques. He had a keen eye for neurological conditions and offered some groundbreaking insights into their causes and potential treatment.
Okay, now I'm really curious. We touched on sleep disorders earlier, but what other conditions did he explore? What kind of details did the sources provide?
He delved into the complexities of facial paralysis, tremors, and even meningitis, offering detailed descriptions of symptoms and potential treatments.
Wow, that must have been a terrifying condition to deal with back then, considering they didn't have antibiotics or a full understanding of how infections work. What was his approach to treating something like that?
Well, he recognized that meningitis was a serious inflammation of the membranes surrounding the brain and spinal cord.
Right.
While he didn't have the tools to fight the infection directly, he focused on managing symptoms and supporting the body's natural healing processes.
So trying to ease the suffering and hope for the best.
Pretty much.
It's fascinating to see how he worked within the limitations of his time to try and understand and treat these complex conditions. But you mentioned something earlier that really caught my attention. His views on mental illness.
Oh, yeah.
That seems like it would have been incredibly radical for the 11th century.
Absolutely. Remember, this was a time when mental illness was often attributed to supernatural causes or seen as a sign of weakness.
Right.
But Ibn Sina was different. He proposed that mental illness could stem from physical imbalances within the body.
Wow, so he was essentially saying that mental and physical health are interconnected, which is a concept that we're still exploring and trying to fully understand today. What kind of evidence did he have for this belief? Did he have any specific theories about how these imbalances might occur?
He believed that mental well-being was closely tied to the balance of what he called the three forces within the body.
Three forces?
Yeah, the natural force, the animal force, and the spiritual force.
Okay, those terms sound intriguing, but I need a little more explanation. What do these three forces actually represent?
Okay, so he saw the natural force as the foundation of our physical being, governing things like growth, nutrition, and reproduction. The animal force was responsible for our movements, sensations, and emotions.
Our interactions with the world.
Exactly. And the spiritual force, the most elevated of the three, was linked to our intellect, our ability to reason and understand.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, he believed that any disruption or imbalance in these forces could lead to illness, including mental illness.
Precisely. He saw these forces as interconnected and interdependent. For example, he believed that sleep deprivation could disrupt the balance of these forces,
Makes sense.
leading to both physical and mental health problems.
That makes so much sense. We're still learning about how sleep deprivation affects our mood, our cognitive function, and even our physical health.
It does.
It's incredible to think that he was making these connections centuries ago.
I know, it really is. It speaks to his incredible powers of observation and his holistic approach to medicine.
Yeah.
He didn't just see the body as a collection of parts, but as a complex system where everything is interconnected.
This is all so fascinating, but I keep thinking about those illustrations of surgical instruments. Did the sources provide any more detail about what those images actually show? What kind of procedures was he performing that required such specialized tools?
They depicted a range of instruments that would have been used for delicate procedures involving nerves,
Like what?
scalpels, forceps, and even tools specifically designed for manipulating nerves.
Wow.
These weren't just basic surgical tools, they were specialized instruments that demonstrated a deep understanding of the nervous system.
Okay, I need a visual here. Can you describe one of these instruments in more detail?
Sure, imagine a fine, curved instrument, almost needle-like, designed for carefully lifting and separating delicate nerve fibers.
Okay.
It's something you might expect to see in a modern neurosurgery operating room, yet it was being used by Ibn Sina centuries ago.
That's just mind-blowing. It really makes you wonder what else he might have accomplished if he had access to modern technology.
Yeah.
But even without that, he managed to make groundbreaking discoveries and develop techniques that were centuries ahead of their time.
Absolutely. His legacy is a testament to the power of human curiosity and the enduring pursuit of knowledge.
Okay, we've explored his work on the nervous system, his groundbreaking views on mental illness, and his concept of the three forces.
We've covered a lot.
But there's still so much more to unpack. What other aspects of his work do we need to dive into?
Well, we've mentioned the Canon of Medicina a few times,
Oh,
but we haven't really explored what made it so revolutionary for its time.
that's right. We know it was a cornerstone of medical education in Europe for centuries.
God-wise.
But what specifically made it so groundbreaking? Did he introduce any new theories or concepts that changed the way medicine was practiced?
Absolutely. The canon wasn't just a rehashing of old ideas. It contained original insights and observations based on his own clinical experiences and his deep understanding of the human body.
Okay, I'm ready for more. Let's dig into the canon and see what medical treasures we can unearth. We'll be back in a moment to continue our exploration. Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of Ibn Sina. We've been on quite a journey exploring his groundbreaking work on the nervous system,
It has been.
his forward-thinking views on mental health, and even his unique concept of the three forces.
Right.
But we're not done yet.
We are not. There's still so much to uncover.
You're right, we've danced around it, but it's time to really tackle the Canon of Medicine.
Yes, let's do it.
This 5-volume masterpiece.
Masterpiece is right.
It wasn't just influential. It was
Yeah.
the medical text in Europe for centuries.
For centuries.
Exactly. We know it was translated into Latin
Uh-huh.
and used in medical schools for 500 years.
I know, it's incredible.
But what was so revolutionary about it? What kind of specific insights did it contain that made such a lasting impact?
Well, for starters, Ibn Sina emphasized the importance of observation and clinical experience.
Okay.
He didn't just rely on ancient texts.
So he wasn't just going by what people had always thought.
Right. He actually studied patients, recorded his findings,
Really?
and used that information to develop his theories.
That sounds like a pretty modern approach, considering that many medical practices back then were based on tradition and superstition.
It was incredibly forward-thinking for his time. He believed that true medical knowledge had to be grounded in careful observation and empirical evidence.
So he was kind of like a scientist, testing his hypotheses and refining his understanding based on what he observed.
Exactly. He was a true pioneer of the scientific method, even though that term wouldn't be coined for centuries. And this approach is evident throughout the canon. He describes diseases in meticulous detail, outlining their symptoms, causes, and potential treatments.
Do you have any examples of specific diseases that he covered in the canon?
Oh, yeah.
What kind of details did he provide?
Well, he had a whole section on contagious diseases, which was quite revolutionary for his time.
Contagious diseases.
Wait.
But he didn't know about germs and stuff, right?
No, not really. But he recognized that some illnesses could be spread from person to person.
Fascinating.
He described measles and smallpox, and even theorized about the role of contaminated water in spreading disease.
So he was already thinking about public health.
In a way, yes.
That's incredible. So he was not only observing symptoms of these diseases, but he was also trying to figure out how they were transmitted.
Precisely. He was a master of connecting the dots
Yeah.
and looking for patterns in the way diseases presented and spread. And he didn't shy away from challenging existing medical dogma if his observations led him to a different conclusion.
That's what you want in a scientist or a doctor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You need someone who's willing to question the status quo.
You know, thinking about all of this, his meticulous observations, his forward-thinking approach to mental health, his groundbreaking work on the nervous system,
It's amazing.
it's clear that Ibn Sina was a true visionary.
He was a polymath.
Polymath.
A physician, a philosopher, a scientist.
Oh.
He had this insatiable curiosity about the world and a deep desire to understand the human body and how it worked.
And what's amazing is that his legacy continues to inspire us centuries later.
It does.
His work reminds us that groundbreaking discoveries can come from any time period or culture.
It's true. It's a powerful testament to the enduring power of human curiosity and our endless quest to understand ourselves and the world around us. Ibn Sina's story is a shining example of how one person's dedication to knowledge and observation can have a lasting impact on humanity.
Absolutely. And his story is a powerful testament to the importance of cross-cultural exchange and the interconnectedness of knowledge throughout history.
Ibn Sina's work transcended geographical boundaries and time itself, shaping the course of medical history and leaving an indelible mark on our understanding of the human body.
Well said. As we wrap up our deep dive into the life and work of Ibn Sina, I'm left with a sense of awe and wonder.
I know what you mean.
Here is a man who lived over 1,000 years ago, yet his insights into medicine, the human body, and even the nature of knowledge itself continue to resonate today.
It's a reminder that while medical knowledge has advanced significantly, the core principles of observation, critical thinking, and a holistic approach to health and well-being remain as relevant as ever.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the legacy of Ibn Sina, a true giant of medical history.